All right, so if you're anything like me, you're going to be very excited about the last couple of weeks of news. Guild Wars 3 is confirmed, it's real, it's sent back into ancient Orr, and, you know, we're having all this great kind of like come together moment for the Guild Wars franchise, that something that we have kind of teased and believed in the background is real, and that's a great thing. And then Arenanet confirmed that Guild Wars 2 is going to continue being live serviced and worked and get expansions and more. So let's talk about this. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more caffeinated content. So let's go ahead and talk about what was really confirmed, which is Guild Wars 3 is on its way. The first beta, however, isn't going to be for about a year and a half. They're looking at the fall of 2027, which is a very long time before we'll even see the beta version of a game that we're excited about. Now, don't get me wrong, it's exciting to know that it is on its way, but it's also very much of the same mindset of, that's a long time. They also did announce with Guild Wars 3 that there aren't going to be any battle passes, there aren't going to be any subscriptions, very similar to that of what we've seen with Guild Wars Reforged and Guild Wars 2, which honestly, that's a great thing. Highly, I could have expected that from this company. Probably going to be monetization methods elsewhere, like the other games, but that is to be expected. I'm okay with a microtransaction that I choose to pay, rather than being forced to pay for a game that I've already purchased, if that makes sense. Then the other aspect of this is that Guild Wars 2 was announced to not have any new expansion in this coming year, this next like year and a half, until they have a good section of Guild Wars 3 ready, which kind of makes sense that they're trying to devote a lot of time and effort onto this game that's coming up that's going to redefine the genre, which is their words, not mine. But because there's no expansions coming out doesn't mean that there isn't anything new coming to the game. Guild Wars 2 is going to be getting a handful of facelifts throughout the entirety of the game. They're going to focus mainly on the core game itself and revamping some of the aspects there, which is great. Then also they're talking about the Hall of Monuments, the transition of Hall of Monuments items that you earn in Guild Wars 2 transferring to Guild Wars 3, which is great because that's going to give us plenty of enough reason and time and window to be able to work on those things once we actually know a little bit more. And then their expectation is that Guild Wars 2 expansions will then start coming out on a regular cadence, regular cycle, like how they have been. Sometime in 2028, I think, is the tentative timeline. I might be wrong on that. So to put this all into perspective, what they're trying to do is essentially scale back on the development of Guild Wars 2 and Guild Wars Reforged slightly to focus more so on Guild Wars 3 that's coming out, but we won't really have too much to work on or too much to explore and new for our game for a number of years. All three games kept alive simultaneously from one studio. And I guess I would reframe the larger question to be, is it good? Obviously, it's good because we're getting more stuff into the world and the franchise that we love. Don't get me wrong. However, is the meantime going to be worth it, really, in that regard? For the casual player, is that going to be enough to want them to come back? All right, so let's break down the good aspects of what is coming. So Guild Wars 3 already confirmed that it's going to be its setting in Orr well before the events of Guild Wars Reforged, and the other aspects along going with it, with the no subscription, the no battle pass and stuff like that. That's fantastic. That's great. I love that they confirm that because that puts casual players at ease. I mean, I think even at one point they highlighted one of the bigger problems in the MMO genre, which is that players are held hostage by their MMOs, either through a subscription or a battle pass, which is a mass subscription, as Colin Johansson put it. I like the idea that we are given the choice of when and where we are spending our money. And again, for a casual player, as a dad who doesn't necessarily have that time to dedicate to a game that way, that's fantastic. That's great news. Love to hear it. And the second aspect of Guild Wars 2's, their expansions being put on hold, that ends up, I think, being a lot bigger of a plus than I think a lot of people are looking at. I would rather them take that time and effort and spend their time and effort, I should say, the Guild Wars 2 team that's working specifically on that game. I would rather them work on the core game, work on the new player experience, work on the development of the other aspects of the game rather than just piling more on top. It's essentially resetting the foundation of which the game and the universe is built off of so that different things can happen down the line and they're a lot more, we'll say, sturdy. They're a lot stronger. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking at this in this direction for. And specifically, if you are a casual player, that's probably some of the best news that you've heard in a while, is because you're getting revamped. You're not necessarily falling behind another expansion or trying to play catch up and see where everyone else is and be on the same level as some of the people who have more time to play. And that's great. That's great for the casual, because then you can play a legend, or you could earn a legendary. You could try out some content that you haven't gotten to. You can go and finish the story, replay some of the story that you haven't had an opportunity to without another yearly cycle coming through. And again, Guild Wars 2 is a very casual game. You should be able to leave and come back and not necessarily have to catch up on 50 hours worth of story just to feel like you're on the same page as everyone. No. I like the idea of recommitting to the base of the game and focusing on its core aspects so that the game ends up being better. People enjoy the initial content a lot more so that they play and stay later, I guess is the best way to put it. And lastly, one of the big things that I want to talk about is the Hall of Monuments. The confirmation of the Hall of Monuments. Now, we don't know what the outline looks like. We don't know like what aspect we need to work on or where we need to be specifically for the Hall of Monuments to earn specific items. I don't know. We don't know yet. However, that is kind of like a good thing for me, is that you are able to know that there is the work you put into Guild Wars 2 is going to transfer in some way to Guild Wars 3. Now, I'm not going to say every legendary that you get gets transferred over. It's definitely not going to be 1-to-1 ratio. If we can look at like Guild Wars Reforged to that of Guild Wars 2, it's not going to be the same. Because even in Guild Wars Reforged to Guild Wars 2, there's only so much that you can earn. A lot of it ends up being like titles, unique ranger pets, like the Fiery Dragon Sword, which was my favorite. Those type of things you can earn, and I like that there's a transition for it. And for those who have played Guild Wars 2 and they're looking for things into Guild Wars 3, I'm very excited and happy to see that the Hall of Monuments is going to be put into there. So your effort feels worthwhile, rather than necessarily like, well, I sunk 10,000 hours into Guild Wars 2 and I have nothing to show for it. You're going to get something. We don't know yet. Some of the reasons that I could be concerned about this statement, about the idea of Guild Wars 2 expansions coming even while Guild Wars 3 is live and working, I think that kind of falls to what they have capable as far as manpower for their teams. Now, they've indicated that they will do a Guild Wars Reforged team, a Guild Wars 2 team, and a Guild Wars 3 team. And each one of them will be kind of operating independently. I think Guild Wars Reforged is working with the studio 2 weeks. And that's great. I love that they've delegated into individual teams for these specific games. And I'm very curious to see how Arenanet tends to balance, or intends on balancing, 2 separate MMOs at the same time. Still working on both of them, still generating content for both of them. Now, to put that into perspective and kind of counter that, is that Guild Wars 2, for the most part, is complete. It has almost all the aspects that they will need. And in that concern, I don't know how much innovation is going to be coming to Guild Wars 2 that wouldn't be necessarily slated for Guild Wars 3. Now, again, Guild Wars 2 is going to be quieter while they tend to focus more so on that revamping, and then Guild Wars 3 on the horizon. But I'm hopeful, and I'm putting some of my trust into what Arenanet is capable of doing. I mean, we've trusted them with Guild Wars 2, with Guild Wars Reforged. I have more reasons to be hopeful than to be doubtful. Now, something that has been said is kind of like the idea of splitting Guild Wars 2 expansions as updates for Guild Wars 3 and having them kind of bounce off of each other. Like, one update will be for this section of the month, or it could be like, this group of January and February, and then Guild Wars 2 has a new expansion that goes from March, April, May, and that's, they're bouncing back and forth. And then there's something from Guild Wars Reforged. So there's always going to be a reason to play back and forth. I'm a little bit concerned of FOMO, of bouncing back and forth and jumping around, especially, again, as a casual player, someone who doesn't have that time, and I'm sure there's plenty of other people who are out there. That sounds like a lot. Being able to balance 2 MMOs at the same time and balance the content, I don't know. I'm just maybe looking at this. I've tried live on this channel, and it hasn't been that great. I feel like I haven't gotten the true effort that I would need to with I didn't jump into one versus jumping into the other. So I'm concerned, and I'm concerned that might turn people away, especially with the 2-year kind of gap of any new content that we're going to see for Guild Wars 2. concerned. All in all, these risks that I'm looking at are just going off of Arenanet's ambitious timeline. They have an ambitious goal, which is great. You want a gaming company to do that, but you want them to be able to take risks and want to take risks, because that's how something new comes out. That's how something works, or something doesn't work and you learn from it. I'm just hesitant on some aspects, and yeah, I kind of the mindset as like, I'll believe it when I see it. So if I'm to look at this from the Caffeinated Dad point of view, I would say that this has me very hopeful and very excited, because the way that I'm kind of like looking at it is, I want to knock out the specific achievements and items that I've been working on, or I've been putting off, I should say, for Guild Wars 2, in preps for Guild Wars 3 coming next year in the fall. So, I mean, that's like earning a couple of legendaries, working on an achievement or two. I might even do some stuff in Guild Wars Reforged, just to kind of have myself not necessarily feeling like I have to bounce back to Guild Wars 2 to finish the stuff while Guild Wars 3's beta is live. I guess that's kind of the mindset that I'm looking at, is how can I use the next 18 months with my time, with what I have, to build up and prep for my gaming time for Guild Wars 3. That's kind of the mentality that I'm looking at. Yes, I'm a little hesitant on a few things that Arenanet has said, and I'm of the mindset of, I like to believe it. I don't necessarily like to jump completely on the hype train. I'm very excited, don't get me wrong, but I want to make sure that we know the facts before I get super duper excited. And again, though, even though I'm at that time, I'd probably be jumping into Guild Wars 3, you got to keep it in mindset that Guild Wars 2 is not necessarily like abandoned. That has never been said, nor is that something that I think that they would ever do. It's more so just completed for me for right now. And it doesn't mean that it's abandoned. It doesn't mean that I won't come back to it. Not absolutely. I'm going to come back to the game, especially after we got a good taste of Guild Wars 3 and we had that experience. So it's important to delineate between those two, is that it's not abandoned. It's just completed for now, and we'll get back to it soon. Again, I'll just say this straight across the board. I'm optimistic, very optimistic about the future of Arenanet and Guild Wars 2 and going into Guild Wars 3. The whole franchise itself has given me a lot of reason to be very excited about MMOs, being very excited about this game and the future of this company. So I would say overall that this is a very good announcement. Despite some things seeming not necessarily the most exciting, 18-month hiatus, holy crap, that's a long time. Yeah, but I also keep it in the mindset of there's still plenty enough to do in Guild Wars 2. They're going to have updates. They're going to have a lot of other things. This is a good time for you to get into the game, try it out, figure some stuff out, work on a couple of legendaries, work on some achievements, get the good experience so that when there is the opportunity to play Guild Wars 3, you can kind of go into it clear-headed. That's my take. Hot dad take. Not that I'm a hot dad take, it's a hot take that a dad said, but you get the point. If you need further convincing, you can click this video here where I talk about all the reasons of why I think you should play Guild Wars 2 now instead of waiting for Guild Wars 3. As always, stay caffeinated, folks.